All right. So again, always make sure you read all the directions, or all the words, even if they are directions, because it is important. When you did this, it wanted to know which one would have the greatest density. So there's two ways you could have gone about this. The first way is what happens when molecules get cold? They pack together. So the colder it is, the more dense it is. So right off the bat, 20 degrees Celsius is the coldest. So that's the answer. The other way you could have looked at it is they're usually most dense as a solid. So the answers were definitely not 3 and 4. And then you would have had to see that that A was colder than B. Or I'm sorry, 1 was colder than 2. If we remove B, the density will stay the same, because remember, when you cut it up, nothing changes the density. 3, I will tell you, if you got 3 wrong, it's not a big deal. It will not be on the test. I haven't seen questions like this on the Regents, but basically they were saying we have a cube and the student screwed up and they put a wet cube on the scale. What happens if you were to weigh yourself soaking wet?
More.
You weigh more. Okay, so it's going to mess up your mass, which if then you did D equals M over V and you have a bigger number on top, what happens to the answer?
I don't know, but is that why people weigh themselves in the morning? Because like you get rid of water weight?
Yes, that, and you haven't eaten for 10 hours. So your stomach, after you do your business, your stomach and your bladder are as empty as possible. But anyway, back to this, which is what we're doing right now, is if your top number was bigger by mistake, what's going to happen to your density answer? If this number was bigger than it's supposed to, it will be bigger. A bigger top number divided by the same bottom number will give you a bigger answer. So that is answer 2. Again, that is not on the test tomorrow. This next part is, so you had to remember 2 things. First of all, volume equals length times width times height. So 2 times 3 times 2, that's 6 times 2. This one equals 12. That is the density, that is the volume. They still wanted you to tell me the mass. So you needed the magic triangle unless you did algebra. What goes on top? M is always on top. So we're looking for M, we cover it up. M equals density times volume. Well, they tell us the density. We just found the volume. When you do that math, you multiply, and that gives you answer 2. So now we're going to heat up that same object. What happens to molecules when you heat them up? They expand, they spread out. So if we took all of you people right now and spread you out in this classroom, are you more or less dense? Less. So when you heat something up and they spread apart, nope, don't circle that. Their density decreases. Now, question 6 threw some people off, but it's saying we have this block. And we want to know what happens to the mass when we change the volume. Guys, what is volume? It is length, width, and height, but in terms of words, like a definition, what's volume? The size. So they're saying, what if I took a teeny tiny bit? So I had a small volume. If I had a small volume, would I have a big mass or a little mass? Little mass. Small volume, little mass puts us here. What if I took a big chunk, like right there? That's a big size. So it's a big volume. Will a big volume have a big or a little mass? Big mass. So that's going to be this graph. Answer 2. Now be careful with question 7. It is talking about water. Why is water, knowing that it's water, important? What do we know about water? What was that? I still can't hear you.
Water does the exact opposite.
There we go. Water does the exact opposite. It is less dense as a solid. That is something you need to know for the test tomorrow. It is less dense as a solid. So if it's less dense as a solid, what do you know happens when we go from 4 to 0? Does anything know what's special about 0? Freezing point. That's when it goes to a solid. So it will actually decrease density. But now we're talking about increasing temperature of air. What happens to the molecules when you increase the temperature of the air? They expand, they spread out, so density decreases. Again, we're back to talking about water. It is greatest density at 4 degrees Celsius in a liquid phase. When you do mass over volume here for this one, so 80 divided by 32, you should get 2.5 grams per centimeters cubed. 12, we want to know when the quartz is released, it will pass through. So we have quartz with a density of 2.7. We're dropping it into this liquid. 2.7 will pass through. It'll sink through a density of 1. It'll sink through a density of 1.8. It'll sink through a density of 2.3, but it will float on a density of 3. So the rock will end up here. So it will pass through W, X, and Y, but not Z. Guys, what does excluding water mean? Not including. So sometimes you have to know vocab words or phrases that are not science words. That's an everyday English language word. And if they say excluding water, it means you don't include water. And that's because water is weird. So everything but water is most dense as a solid, least dense as a gas, and liquids in between the two. Water would be different. Water would have solids being less than liquid, but not as small as gas. So it's actually not even on here. For these ones, you did have to calculate the densities first and then plot them. You should have gotten a graph that looked similar to this. So first of all, the densities were 1.75 for A and 0.4 for B. When you have two lines, make sure you label them. If your lines were reversed and you had B up here and A down here, that's because you plotted thinking mass. So if you would have done 14 and 8, which would have gotten you here instead of here. So notice, in fact, you can see there might even be a whiteout dot there because Mrs. Ritz might have screwed up. But if you had your lines reversed, it's because you did not do volume on the X and mass on the Y. And they messed with you on purpose. Normally your graphs are beautiful and they have the X on the top and the Y on the bottom. But here it was Y on top and X on the bottom. Just enough to screw you up. Be careful with that. A few of you, I let you skip this page, and that's because this won't be on the test. So those, that's why I let you skip this page if I noticed. But once you did this, you should have noticed that if it was less dense, then the line is lower than the water line. And if it's more dense, the line is above the water line. And the greatest density is always going to have the steeper slope. All right, moving on to the page that I thought most of you had the most trouble with. The first thing I noticed a lot of trouble with was volume equals length times width times height. So you did 2 times 2 times 2. Hey, what is 2 times 2 times 2? It's 8. It's not 6. I saw 6 there a lot. And I think I know why you did that. Because you didn't use your calculator. And you see 2 times 2 times 2, and a whole bunch of people is that's 2 3 times, and they thought it was 6. That's addition. This is multiplication. Guys, there are no bonus points. I do not judge you if you use a calculator. So use a calculator. Because you know when I will judge you? If you have 2 times 2 times 2 and you tell me it's 6 because you did it in your head. That might be when I judge you. I won't really, but use your calculator because there is no shame in using a calculator. This is not math class. Maybe they shame you there. You know where they shame you? Apparently first quarter of 7th grade, they shame you if you use a calculator, but for the rest of the year, they're apparently being allowed to use a calculator. I don't understand. I'm not in charge. Density of sample A. So a lot of you did not have trouble with this as long as you had the right number. D equals M over V. So it should have been 24 over 8 gives you 3. So then we come up here, length times width times height. People didn't struggle with this one. 3 times 2 times 1, that is 6. Then we need to do mass. But I don't know the mass and I don't know the density. So I do know, or at least you should have known you had to use the magic triangle. M on top, D and V. Cover up the M. We were looking for M equals D times V, which should be simple enough. But what the heck is the D? Density. So what's the number? 3. Because when you read the directions, you saw same uniform material. When you see the phrase same uniform material, that should be like a red flag waving in the air. What does same material really mean? Same density. So this one, the D equals 3, and this one's also, they all equal 3. So 3 times 6, you should have 18 grams here. Same deal here. They want the mass. We know the volume. We know the density. So you should have had 36 grams here. Again, when you plot that, again, those are your numbers. Volume on the X. So you had to do 8 and then go up to 24 and get your dot. You had to go to 6 and go up to 18. And to 12 and go up to 36, and then you got a best fit line. If you went out of order, you would have had a misshapen box, a line there. When you figured out the density here, 2, 2, 2. 50 divided by 25, 100 divided by 50, and 150 divided by 75 is 2. So these were all different volumes, but the same density. Which graph shows you that? 3, all different volumes, same density. Use this graph to find the density. Well, you know you need mass, which is over here, volume, which is over here. So you could have picked any spot. I went right here where it's 35. I go over to the Y till it hits the line, go down. I have a mass of 35 and a volume of 7. 35 divided by 7 is 5. You could have picked another number. Here's 25. Go over till I hit the line, and it's halfway between 4 and 6, so that's 5. And 25 divided by 5 is 25 divided by 5 is 5. So it didn't matter where you went, your density would have been 5. Same deal when the volume of material X is 4 or Z is 14. So volume 14, they want to know the mass. So I go over. Now I would have said that that is on 15. Is 15 an answer? It's not. Does this line look below 15 or above 15? Or below. It is below. I will not put one that's that close. I would have had 15 as an answer and nothing else. The Regents won't be that mean either. Finally, you had to graph something that had a volume of 7 and a mass of 12. So I go to a volume of 7, go up to a mass of 12, put a dot there, and draw your line. It should be straight, but I just winged it. wunged it. I don't know. I free-handed it. Don't do that. And then just to finish these up real quick. These are your answers here. So 0.5, 2.65, 1, 0.00009, and 2.29. Putting them in order from least to most. It did say letters. So if you put the actual densities instead of the letters, I would have to mark it wrong. So in order is DACEB. Density of water is 1, which means A and D will absolutely float. If you included C, which has a density of 1, I'm okay with you including that because let's actually do an example. If I took a water balloon and threw it in a pool, what do water balloons do in a pool? Do they float at the top like a floaty?
Yeah.
Like a floaty, like a raft when it's filled with water? It doesn't float where it's like barely underwater. It kind of floats right underneath the surface, doesn't it? Yeah. So it doesn't sink to the bottom either. It kind of hovers in the middle. And that's because they have the same density. So they don't float like something that was filled with air would float. They do sink a little. This is something that has to be clear. I heard a lot of conversations about this yesterday. What happens to the volume of air when it's heated? So you guys know that air expands when it's heated. So the volume gets bigger, which means the density for the next question gets smaller. Or less dense. Yes, I'm sorry. Less dense, decreases, any of those words that mean that. And then we've got, again, what happens to the volume? It gets smaller when you put pressure on it, but the density gets bigger or increases. Any questions? I know I went super fast with those. Are there any that you got wrong that you want me to go over? So tomorrow's test is on observation, inference, prediction, graphs, and density. It'll be about 25 questions with a mixture of multiple choice and short answer. Is there anything that you know is bothering you with those topics? Okay, well then what we're gonna do is play Kahoot. You can either use your own electronic device or your computer. Depends on if you can use a circle charger or you can use a circle charger, then yes. Here, this one's already unwound. You can have that one.
That's not good. It is. Oh, never mind. Oh.
Yeah, they did not give us the Type-C chargers. Yeah, I didn't know there was different computers this year. Oh, you're waiting for me, aren't you? Sure. Then give me a second. Share sound. Let's go. Not gonna lie, my favorite part of Kahoot is the music, so hopefully it gets going here. I don't know why it's not playing right now. I also don't know why it says this video is private. Go ahead and join on up. You may need a calculator. So if you can flip back and forth between Kahoot and on your phone and a calculator, go for it. Or it looks like Mr. D's gonna offer up some calculators if anybody needs one. I take it back. You will need a calculator. None of this you probably will need. You absolutely need. Wait, me, oh, you're just waiting for a calculator.
I gotta get my light fixed.
So we've got 11, but there's really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13. Two of you not in yet? Yours is taking forever, okay. Anybody else? Who's the other one taking forever? Are you guys in? I'm still looking for 2. Who's the other one? Who's not logged in besides Brooklyn?
Oh, yeah, no.
Jenna, are you sure? Did you get logged out?
Yeah.
Oh, now we lost another one. Guys, check to see if you got logged out. Log back in. All right. Are you almost there? Okay. By the way, there is points awarded to first, second, and third. What? Not you. All right, we'll just kick that person out and they have no opportunity to get points. How about that? Let's go. I think this is sounding hopeful for my music. It's not classic. When the mineral calcite is heated, it expands, causing its density to be. Can you see this chart on your phones? Okay. If you can't see, it says calcite normally has a density of 2.7. A little loud.
This is my first gift of the year.
You're welcome. All right, not bad. So when we heat it up, remember, when you heat something up, including humans, if you heat humans up, they want to spread out. Molecules are the same way, unless it's water. When you heat molecules up, they're hot and sweaty, so they spread out. When you spread out, by definition, that means you're less dense. And that is how they'll incorporate earth science to it. They'll ask a question about a mineral. Nice work. I guess I'm covering up the next one. There we go. Look at that. Keep up the good work. A student classifies several objects. The classification system should be based on. Yes, observations. Nice. A cube was broken into many pieces. How does the density of the pieces compare to the whole cube? Perf. Correctly interpret this graph. I hope so.
Yeah, I know it. So it's
Yeah, it is. Ew, that one's a little ugly. So this graph that has volume on the X, remember we always say the X axis and it's always increasing. So as volume increases, then you read the Y, density, then you tell me what the line is doing. That's a going down. So as volume increases, density decreases. That was your yellow circle or orange. What do you guys call that? Yellow?
Yeah.
It's like a yellowish orange.
No.
Oh, Phoenix. The primary purpose of a classification system is to enable people to apparently. I love it. Ooh, so the reason we would organize something is to well, the reason we classify it is to organize them so that we can then look at them really easily. We do not extend our powers of observation. That's an instrument. So if we used a ruler or a microscope or a satellite, that would extend our sense of sight. That's not classification. We don't eliminate inaccurate inferences when we organize, and we don't make measurements. Classifying is to organize. As population density increases, the lake pollution, so population on the X, pollution on the Y. So even though there's not a line here, you can see that most of the dots are plotted in this center area. Almost, if you had to do a best fit line, it would be a straight diagonal line right here. So as population density increases, amount of pollution increases.
No, I'm not even thinking.
It is, Kahoot is not the best measure of how much you understand.
Oh.
Being put under pressure to do things fast is not a good way to measure. So if you're not doing awesome right now, it's okay.
Great. We gotta call the game. We gotta call it. Can we end the game?
No.
Right.
Okay, quick refresher course. So remember the decimal point goes between the first two digits. And then you have to count how many spots you moved it. So if it was here, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's 6.5 times 10 to the 7th. Those of you who picked red, there's no decimal point in there. Those of you who picked blue, you counted the circles. Or not the circles, the zeros, which are circles, but 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You don't just count the zeros. You count how many decimal places you have to move it over. There is another one of these coming up later in the Kahoot, so you can have a chance to redeem yourselves. A pebble has a mass of 35 grams and a volume of 14 cubic centimeters. What's its density? Mass divided by volume, 35 divided by 14 gives you 2.5. Those of you who got 4, I don't even know what you did. If you did 0.4, which none of you picked, then you put the wrong one on top. What'd you guys do that got 4? Did you just guess?
Come on, guys. Mass divided by volume.
Make the special triangle.
Students observed and measured characteristics of a stream, which is most likely an inference. Remember, there's a difference between an inference and a prediction. Yes. Carved by a glacier, that is an inference. You were not there. But if the stream is dark brown in color, you're there. You're looking at the stream. It is gross. Well, it doesn't, it could be because there was a lot of storming and it's filled with dirt from erosion, but we haven't gotten there. And the depth is different at various distances from the bank. They would have gotten in and they would have measured the depth. Let's keep going. We got 5 minutes. What is the mass of cube B? Cube B, they give you the density, they give you the volume. Okay, so mass, remember, mass is density times volume. So you would have taken density 3, volume 27, multiplied them together, and that gave you 81. You divided if you got 9. Magic triangle, M on top. What is the density of this material? So we just did one of these for homework.
I'm done. I thought it was like trying to trick me first.
It's not, it's just having you do 2 steps. So let's talk about it. So what do you need to figure out density? You divide mass by volume. So you can use this graph to say, okay, pick a mass, any mass. I'm going to go with this 20 right here because it's nice in the middle. So I take a mass. So when this object has a mass of 20, when you hit the line and read down, it tells you it has a volume of 2. So mass of 20, a volume of 2, divide those up, and you should have gotten 20 divided by 2 is 10. You could have done it here, 30 divided by 3, or 10 divided by 1. Either way, you would have got the answer, the red answer, which is 10. Looks like we got time maybe for 2 more. We'll at least get 1 more. What conclusion about the relative density of the rock and the liquid is true? Notice that the rock is floating above the liquid. I blew it up for you. So in this case, this rock, because the rock is floating. Now, not all rocks float, not all rocks sink. This rock is floating, so it has a density less than water. All right, I think we got time for at least 1 more. So a solid object has a density of 3 grams per cubic centimeter. What is the mass of this object? Yep, there it is. So you can do the volume first. They tell you the density and they give you the measurements. So we know them using the magic triangle, mass equals M on top, density and volume, cover up the M, you're left with M equals D times V. The D was 3. 3 times 1 is 3 times 2 is 6. The answer should have been 18. All right, I guess we will stop there. So congratulations to our winners. Again, guys, do I think Kahoot is a great way of showing what you know? It's not, because you have to go fast. So if you did not do awesome because you were in a hurry, then that happens. But if you need help on anything, today is the day to get that help. Test tomorrow.